Hello everyone, welcome to Yashoda Hospital's online segment, the Health Talk session. We are here today to talk about the topic, the heart and lung transplants in India. We have with us today Dr. Gyanesh Thakur, Program and Surgical Director, Heart and Lung Transplant from Yashoda Hospitals, and Dr. Kamran Ali, Consultant Thoracic and Lung Surgeon from Yashoda Hospitals, Hyderabad. Welcome, sir. So, sir, being the first surgeon to operate on the first Indian patient for lung transplant in 2012 in Mumbai, and now achieving the milestone of operating for more than 500 plus patients across the world. So, tell us more about your successful journey and what's your success mantra for this?
In Tamil Nadu, there were 496 donations in 2011 compared to in Bombay, in 15 years, there were only 31 donations. So, I decided to go from Bombay to Tamil Nadu, and because Tamil Nadu was also becoming the hub of transplantation, and that is where we began to do the first minimally invasive, I did the first minimally invasive lung transplantation at Global Hospital in Chennai. Later on, our journey went on to Coimbatore, where we did the first Indian to get lung transplantation in a teaching hospital, because All India Institute of Medical Sciences, PGI Chandigarh, JIPMER, Christian Medical College at Vellore, none of these high-powered academic institutions had done a lung transplant, but we could do a lung transplant at PSG Hospital in Coimbatore. And from there we have come to Hyderabad, to Yashoda Hospital, so that we can pursue this. This whole activity has, in the last decade, has increased, and I am sure that in the next 10 years there will be more than 100 programs in this country which will be doing lung transplantation. To quote Dr. Abdul APJ Kalam, that we are not a screwdriver nation, we are resourceful, we are indigenous, we are intelligent, and we are capable of taking care of our own. We are also self-reliant. We are going to do our program for our country. There are no programs in other nations like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and several other countries in the Middle East. But we have now initiated a program in our country. And I am excited to look at the next decade. Success mantra. There is no, I wish the success mantra was to be at the right time, at the right place, and to be perseverant, to be passionate, and to be positive that things will work out eventually. As one of my teachers said, Gyanesh, you will succeed if you don't give up.
So, Dr. Kamran, tell us about your clinical experience in this field in India as well as other foreign countries.
Right. So, my first exposure to lung transplantation was while I was in South Korea for my fellowship in thoracic surgery. The whole process of transplantation looked really appealing to me. Before that, I had very little bookish knowledge about transplants. And with that knowledge, with that exposure, when I came back to India, I realized that there was a lot of burden of end-stage lung diseases in India, and there were hardly any centers which were doing lung transplant. Dr. Gyanesh was one of the first people who had done a transplant in India, and that was actually very encouraging. Eventually, I decided that I would want to get trained in this science of an art of lung transplantation, and there were few training opportunities in Toronto, Vienna, in Germany, and eventually I decided to get trained at the Medical University of Vienna. It was a very great learning experience. It was a very high volume center doing 100 plus transplants each year. I was there for about 8 months, and I got a good exposure about transplant, right from pre-transplant, surgical part, and management of post-transplant patients. The difference between what I feel between the Indian transplant scenario and the transplant scenario in Europe or maybe US or any other established, well-established transplant centers is that the systems are very well defined. There is a lot of support from the government in pushing lung transplant, and because these programs have been in place for a very long time, everything has fallen into place. The people in general in these countries are very well aware of lung transplantation, and they are very well motivated in the aspect of organ donation, which I feel is lacking in our country. And but with the unfortunately or fortunately, COVID acted as a catalyst to increase awareness of lung transplant in India, and we are seeing that more and more people are now aware of this fact that lungs can be transplanted.
So sir, talking about this pandemic era, I'm sure there's a lot of increased awareness about lung transplant in India now. So we have a lot of our audience asking us, who should get a lung transplant?
See, for the COVID patients, there are different guidelines which are now being worked out. So the guidelines suggest that if the patient has got ARDS or pneumonia due to COVID, which means a lot of lung infection, then they require to be hospitalized. They are given medical treatment. They may be put on ventilator, and if the oxygenation still is suboptimal, then they may be placed on ECMO. Once they are on ECMO, we monitor them whether they are developing irreversible changes. That means changes which are not going to regress. Such changes are honeycombing of the lung. If you see honeycombing of the lung by 4 or 5 weeks, then these patients become candidates for transplantation. For patients who are not COVID and who have got end-stage lung disease, which means that they have pulmonary fibrosis or primary pulmonary hypertension or COPD or cystic fibrosis or bronchiectasis, these patients with end-stage lung disease, they have definite international guidelines which are by a consensus report, and we follow those guidelines in offering lung transplant patients, those patients lung transplantation.
So Dr. Kamran, tell us about what happens if a patient doesn't get a lung transplant done.
So if the pulmonologists and the surgeons feel that a patient needs a lung transplant, and if they for some reason opt out or do not want to get a lung transplant, what eventually happens is that their oxygen requirements keep going up and their quality of life keeps deteriorating. So they are bound to oxygen 24/7, and even doing simpler tasks like going to the washroom or eating a meal makes them really breathless. So practically they are just bound to an oxygen source, and they are bedridden, and the quality of life really goes down, and eventually they succumb to the end-stage lung disease.
So Dr. Gyanesh, in your vast clinical experience in achieving this milestone of operating more than 500 patients all across the world, so tell us about one success story which is close to your heart.
There was this young lady, her name is Farida. She was 41 years old, living in South Bombay, and her husband had contacted me and telling me that she is they had already consulted me, they had shown me all their investigations, and she was admitted at a tertiary care center in Bombay. I got a phone call from her, and I suggested that she needs a transplant and you should take discharge because the doctors were not discharging her from there. So we discharged her. They took her discharge and took her home. I told them to bring her to my clinic, but her husband called me up and told me that she is unable to come to the clinic. Could you come and see her at home? So I went over there. I went to Bombay Central, went to her house and examined her, went through all the investigations, answered all the questions. She was determined to get back to a new life, and she told her husband after our consultation that she would like to go to Coimbatore, and we do a transplant. She would like to get a transplant. She got into an airplane that next morning at 10 o'clock and she reached the transplant program. She was transplanted after waiting for a transplant for 6 to 8 months. Today she has successfully transplanted. Her elder daughter is a doctor. Her 2 other daughters are in college, and she is now 3 years post-transplant living a normal functional life. That's a success story. That's what I live for. That's what my passion is. That now this lady may never know that when I saw her, she had 50% chance of being dying in that exacerbation, and she had only 20% chance of being alive for 1 year or 2 years. And now she, with the transplant, she has 20% chance of being alive for 20 years.
I think that's wonderful. That's like a second life what you're giving to patients.
Yeah, second chance to live. That's our mission. That's the purpose of my life.
So Dr. Kamran, what are the challenges faced and how do you counsel the patient and their families while undergoing lung transplant?
Okay, it's a very important question. There are actually challenges at multiple levels when we see a patient or we evaluate a patient for lung transplant. Most of these patients are clinically very depressed, apart from their physiological illness from the respiratory point. They're also very clinically depressed, and so are their families. They've sort of given up on life, and it's important that we give them this hope that, you know, after a transplant they will come back to near normal life and will be able to carry out most of their activities, and they need to be in a positive frame of mind before undergoing a transplantation. The other aspect is they also need to be counseled about this fact that transplant is a very, very major life-changing event, and they need to follow a specific protocol of taking medicines, including immunosuppressions, maybe some antifungals, antibiotics, and other medicines for a very long period after transplant, and they have to accept this fact. The other challenge that we face is, especially in India, is that, of course, transplant is a very heavy procedure on the pocket, and a lot of patients need to work up on their finances before they can undergo a transplant, even if they are mentally or physically prepared for it. So that's another aspect where we face a lot of challenges, and in that aspect we try to help them in sort of in terms of helping them with crowdfunding and guiding them to the sources which can support their transplant charges. A lot of issues are also faced on the front of their general health. Most of these patients are either very weak, their BMIs are very low, or they are on the other extreme, that they are maybe obese, not moving around, and their BMIs are very high. Both of these categories are not great candidates for transplant, so we have to really take this challenge head on and get them actively involved in physiotherapy and respiratory therapy programs, so as they are close to optimal fitness before they undergo a major surgery like transplant.
One of the challenges which Dr. Kamran just touched upon was that most of the patients who come to us are coming against the advice, because many of the physicians are not convinced that transplant is a definitive treatment for end-stage lung disease. Second thing is that they are influenced by the physicians who are taking care of them, that the outcomes are not very good. Of course, it's a new program in our country, and it has just begun in 2012 when we did the first Indian to get lung transplant. So it's less than 10 years old program. So there is going to be some amount of time before we can have our own data and we can have our good outcomes. So that is one challenge. Besides, he has touched upon two important challenges about weight, because they are referred at such a late stage that they are already debilitated and they have a lot of frailty.
So, Dr. Gyanesh, I'm sure in this COVID times especially, you were working for long hours in the hospital, round the clock. So, how did you balance both your personal and professional life?
Interesting question. Luckily, I met my wife when I was 19 years old, and it's now a long time, so she's used to going through my residency program in cardiac surgery, where I used to almost stay in the hospital, and she used to come and meet me I used to get alternate day weekends. So luckily I have a partner in life who has understood that although there is physical absence, but there is emotional connection, and we talk to each other 2 or 3 times a day. So my son is the only other member of the family. He is in US and he is on his way to become a cardiologist. He'll be taking his board exam on 6th of August this year. So luckily I was free to devote all my time to the patients, to be in the hospital and to take care of the patients on ECMO, after transplant. So luckily it was very easy for me to manage the work in the hospital, having a very friendly, compliant wife and son who is already abroad.
So, Dr. Kamran, one of your publications is A Tale of Surviving 3 Cardiorespiratory Arrests on the Table During Surgery. Tell us more about the story.
So, this publication we did was in 2018, but it's not related to a lung transplant, but it is related to a very challenging thoracic surgery. The patient was a young male, about 8 years age, and he had a right main stem bronchus tumor, which was completely blocking his right lung, and he was short of breath, getting repeated infections, had a lot of chest pain, a lot of cough and phlegm. And we eventually saw him in the outpatient clinic and decided that he would need a surgery. So on table while we were operating him, and I believe the tumor in his bronchus was very friable, and I guess it kept on breaking in pieces, and it started blocking his left main bronchus also, which was the only patent airway that child had. So he suffered 3 consecutive cardiopulmonary arrests on table because of that tumor breaking off during our dissection and going and blocking the left main bronchus. We had to do 3 CPRs on table, and eventually we had to in his open chest we had to put in an endotracheal tube onto the left side so as to ventilate his left lung, because he was not getting ventilated from the endotracheal tube into his trachea. It was a nightmare, but luckily we could get away with a successful surgery, and the child is doing very well now.
Congratulations. Excellent work.
So, sir, we have a lot of our audience asking us, what is the success and survival rate after one undergoes lung transplant?
The success rate of after lung transplantation is 50% at 5 years. Now it is increased with increasing experience. So globally, it is about 60% at 5 years, 40% at 10 years, and about 20 to 30% at 20 years. Now you have to compare this outcome with the outcome that without a transplant. Without a transplant, the person has a 20% chance of being alive for 2 years, and with a transplant they have a 20% chance of being alive for 20 years. So you can see there is a gross difference. Lung transplantation is a definite treatment for end stage lung disease. If you spread out the surface of the lung, it is about 1 tennis court, 400 meters, if you spread it out on. So that much surface is in contact with air, with the environment. So any particle will get trapped into the lung. So good thing that a patient can do after transplant is do steam inhalations 2 or 3 times a day, and after that good physiotherapy with incentive spirometry and coughing. And when they cough, they will keep the airways clean, and that will give them the best quality of life. This is a juicy bit of information I am giving you that will keep you away from hospitals and medical treatment.
So Dr. Kamran, how long would it take for a patient to resume the normal activities after undergoing lung transplant?
So once a transplant is done, once the surgery is done, the average time for discharge from hospital is around 2 to 3 weeks. After that, we suggest the patient to stay in the city which they get the transplant done for at least about a month, because he would need a regular follow-up and surveillance, adjustment of his post-transplant medicines. During this time, we encourage patients to be active and actively do physiotherapy and rehab at home, as well as visit the post-surgery rehab clinics in a hospital so as to maintain their level of fitness. During this time, we expect the patient to carry on their basic activities like eating food without assistance, going to the washrooms unattended, carrying small loads in their hands, walking some amount of distance in the hospital, which eventually we want them to gradually increase. Once this period is over, the quantum of physical work that they can do is gradually increased, and by the end of 6 months, I believe they can carry on most of their pre-transplant activities as like any normal person would be able to do.
So Dr. Gyanesh, before ending this episode, what advice or message you would like to give our audience?
What I would like to take the people who are watching this program to carry with them is that end stage lung disease has a definitive treatment with lung transplantation. With lung transplantation, you will be able to live a normal life, travel wherever you want, raise a family, go back to your employment, teach if you want to, and you will get a second chance to live your life once again without oxygen. You will be completely free of oxygen. Of course, you have to be in constant touch with your transplant team, with us, every 3 months for the first year, every 6 months for the second year, and maybe once or twice for the lifetime, for your lifetime, to be in touch with us so that we can guide you to get the best quality of life, so that you can walk between the narrow path between rejection and infection.
Dr. Kamran, you would like to add anything to this?
I think Sir has very nicely summarized the take-home message for lung transplant patients. I would just like to add that once you are a patient who undergoes a transplant, it's a lifelong association between the surgeon, physician and the patient, and we sort of become an extended family, and we make sure that the patient realizes that at any point in his life after a transplant, we will be there for them to support them in any form, whether it's medical, a problem or an emotional problem, we are there for them.
Yes, very correct. It's like marriage for life.
So this brings us to the end of this session. We look forward for joining us onto the next week as well. Thank you for your active participation. Thank you and stay safe.